They told me not to show up, that it would be better if I just stayed home. But what they didn't know was that I had every intention of being there, and not just to sit quietly in the corner. I wasn't supposed to be at this wedding. That much was obvious from the moment I walked through the grand entrance of the Magnolia Hill estate. Whispers clung to the air like perfume. Eyes darted toward me, then quickly away, as if my presence might ignite something too scandalous to witness. And maybe it would. I'll admit it. The wedding was breathtaking. Tessa had spared no expense. Everything was white and gold, crystal and orchids, soft jazz humming under the clink of expensive champagne glasses. The guests wore designer smiles and glittering accessories, each of them basking in the illusion of perfection. But no amount of beauty could hide the rot underneath. Because this wasn't just any wedding. This was her wedding. Tessa, my younger sister, my parents' favorite, the one who always got the bigger bedroom, the last slice of cake, the louder praise. And now she had taken something else, something far more personal. Nathan. Nathan had once been my fiancé, my person, my future. Until I walked into our apartment one Tuesday night and found them together, tangled up in the very bed where he once held me and promised me forever. I still remember the way he froze. The guilt on his face didn't even matter, because all I could hear was Tessa's voice, soft and smug like honey hiding poison. "I won, Lena," she said with a shrug. Checkmate. A month later, the wedding I had poured my heart into was wiped clean off the calendar. Every vendor I had booked tried to keep my deposits. Tessa and Nathan, no longer hiding, emerged proudly as a couple, like they were some sort of love story instead of a betrayal. I didn't just lose a fiancé. I lost my pride, my trust, my family. So I disappeared for a while, packed a suitcase, worked remote from hotels, drifted between cities, pretending to chase peace while I patched the hole in my chest. Eventually, I moved back home, different, stronger. I adopted a kitten, named her June, and I promised myself I'd never let anyone play me for a fool again. Then, the invitation arrived, embossed, pretentious, and nauseatingly cheerful. "Tessa and Nathan are tying the knot. You're invited to witness their forever." I stared at it for a long time. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't even race. Instead, something inside me clicked into place, like a gear that had been waiting to move. I wasn't going to ignore this. Number I was going to attend, but not as a guest. I bet it was my parents who forced her to send the invite. Tessa would never invite me willingly, unless she wanted to gloat. She always did love having an audience when she triumphed over someone. But what Tessa didn't know was that I had plans of my own. Tonight wouldn't be the celebration she imagined. Tonight she'd regret ever crossing me. The ceremony itself? A blur. I stood near the back, watching as the officiant recited scripted words about love and devotion. Words Nathan once said to me. Words he now said to my sister, as if they meant something new. Nathan looked handsome, I'll give him that. Black tux, fake smile, and eyes that didn't quite sparkle the way they used to. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was the weight of secrets sewn into his tuxedo seams. Tessa looked radiant, beaming like she had just won the jackpot, and maybe she thought she had. I sipped champagne and smiled to myself. Let her have this moment, because the next one, it would belong to me. The reception was where it all began. By the time the guests filtered into the ballroom, the air buzzed with soft music, high heels clicking on marble, and a low hum of laughter over clinking champagne flutes. Servers weaved through the crowd with silver trays. A towering cake stood in the corner like a monument to self-importance. And just behind the dance floor, a massive screen cycled through photos of the happy couple, Tessa and Nathan on the beach. Tessa jumping into his arms, her face full of joy. Their foreheads pressed together like they'd discovered some kind of sacred love. Anyone walking into that ballroom would think they were soulmates. But I knew better. And they were about to know it too. I moved through the room unnoticed, my black dress a deliberate contrast to the ivory and gold theme. It hugged my frame just right, sleek, striking, not the dress of a guest, but a warning. Every step I took felt like reclaiming something they had stolen from me. I reached the table with the DJ setup and, just like I had rehearsed 100 times, found the laptop connected to the screen. I plugged in my flash drive, my fingers steady, my heart calm. Click, click, enter, click. I stepped away before anyone noticed me, melted back into the crowd, and waited. The first few seconds passed unnoticed. The guests continued sipping, chatting, oblivious to the shift about to take place. And then Nathan's voice filled the ballroom. "Please, don't leave me!" Every head turned toward the screen. There, grainy but unmistakable, was a security video from my old bedroom. Nathan sat on the edge of my bed, tears streaking his face, his hands outstretched toward someone off screen. Me. "Erica means nothing to me, Lena. Absolutely nothing," he sobbed. "She was a mistake. I love you, Lena. I made a huge mistake." The music had stopped. The chatter died. An eerie silence spread across the room like fog. All eyes were now locked on the screen. I turned to look at Tessa. She stood motionless, her mouth slightly open, her eyes wide as saucers. Her perfectly powdered cheeks had drained of color. Nathan stood beside her, frozen like a statue, his hand halfway to his glass. He looked like he wanted to vanish into the floor. And still, the video rolled on. Another clip played. This one, from a different angle. My hallway, another timestamp. Nathan and Tessa sneaking into my home while I was supposed to be working late, whispering, laughing, kissing as they tiptoed toward my bedroom. Then a final clip. Tessa lounging in my bed. My bed. "She'll never know," she whispered, brushing her hair behind her ear. "Lena who?" Nathan laughed, joining her under the covers. The room gasped. Someone dropped a glass. A woman covered her mouth. My mother clutched her pearls like she'd just seen a ghost. My father's jaw clenched so tight I thought I heard it crack. Tessa stumbled backward, her hand flying to her mouth. This isn't real," she mumbled. "It's fake. This is... Someone must have edited this." She tried to wave it away like it was nothing but confetti in the air, but everyone knew better. Nathan turned to her, his face contorted with something between rage and disbelief. "You told me you deleted the footage," he hissed, barely loud enough for me to hear, but I caught it, and so did a few others. "What?" She blinked. I thought I did." "Oh," I said, loud enough for the people nearest to us. "So you knew you were being recorded? That's funny." Nathan's face drained. Tessa looked ready to explode. Around us, guests murmured, exchanged glances, edged away from the couple they had come to celebrate. The illusion was crumbling. The fantasy was cracking open. But the moment that truly shattered everything came next. "Lena!" The voice cut through the tension like a blade. I turned, and there he was. Eli. He stepped forward from the back of the room, the crisp white shirt beneath his black server vest catching the chandelier light. In a room full of chaos, his face was steady, strong, safe. He placed his tray of champagne glasses on a nearby table and walked toward me. Not rushed, not hesitant, measured, certain. I hadn't expected this part so soon. He was supposed to wait. He was supposed to let the dust settle. But Eli had always known how to read the room better than anyone, and the look in his eyes said it all. This was the moment. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Eli strode across the ballroom floor, each step echoing like a drumbeat. The same people who had whispered about me minutes ago now turned their full attention to him, the handsome waiter who had suddenly become the center of the drama. Tessa's mouth dropped open. Nathan blinked like he couldn't process what was happening, but Eli didn't falter. He stopped in front of me, took one last steady breath, and dropped to one knee. The room froze. The chaos, the whispers, the silent judgments, all of it stopped, suspended in air, hanging on the moment. Eli reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. The room collectively inhaled when he flipped it open. Inside was a ring, not flashy, not enormous, but beautiful, intricate, and deeply personal. It wasn't just a ring, it was a promise. "I've waited long enough to ask you this, my love," he said, his voice clear and calm, full of warmth. "Lena, will you marry me?" For a moment I couldn't breathe. I looked at him, really looked at him, and in the midst of all the wreckage, all the broken pieces of the past year, there was one person who had never once let me fall. Eli had stood by me through everything, quietly, steadily. He hadn't tried to fix me. He had just been there, exactly when I needed him. From the moment he saw that invitation lying on my kitchen counter, he hadn't hesitated. When I told him about my plan, he didn't tell me to move on or take the high road. No, he looked me in the eyes and said, "Then I'm coming with you. However you need me, I'll be there." Even if it meant pretending to be a waiter, even if it meant blending into the background until the right moment. This man was everything Nathan never was. From behind me, I heard Tessa choke on her words. Are you kidding me right now? Lena, what the hell is this?" She stormed toward us, her designer heels clicking like gunshots against the floor. "My wedding! This is my wedding! What kind of psychotic—" I didn't flinch. I just looked at her. Really looked at her. Her mascara was smudging beneath her eyes, her flawless hair starting to come undone. Her perfect day was unraveling strand by strand, and for once, she wasn't winning. I turned back to Eli. My heart was pounding, my throat tight with emotion, but I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I said. My voice didn't shake. "Yes, Eli, I will." The room erupted, a chaotic, beautiful mix of gasps, claps, even cheers from some corners. My mother, who had sat frozen through the whole video, now covered her mouth and started crying. Not from shame this time, but something that looked an awful lot like pride. Tessa? Her face contorted in a way I'd never seen before. It wasn't just anger, it was panic, because she was losing control, and Tessa had never learned how to handle that. Nathan tried to grab her hand, maybe to calm her, maybe to get some answers, but she yanked it away with a disgusted jerk. The look she gave him said it all. He was no longer part of her story either. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. He looked completely destroyed, not just embarrassed, but gutted, like he had just realized that in chasing a thrill, he'd thrown away something real. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I had no intention of fixing what he broke. Tessa was still trembling, her arms crossed tightly across her chest. "This is my day," she screamed, stamping her heel hard enough to knock over a chair behind her. You just hijacked my wedding. Are you seriously that pathetic?" I stepped forward, holding Eli's hand, and gave her a smile I'd been saving for this very moment. "Oh, sweetheart," I said sweetly, "you stole the wrong man. And the wrong wedding. I just returned the favor. And stole the spotlight." And with that, I turned on my heel, laced my fingers with Eli's, and walked out of the ballroom, leaving behind gasps, whispers, and one shattered version of happily ever after. But I wasn't just walking away from the wedding. I was walking away from everything that no longer served me. The sounds of the wedding still echoed in my head. The gasps, the mutters, the clink of falling glass, and Tessa's final shriek of frustration like some tragic ending to a bad play. But all of that was fading behind us now. Eli and I walked hand in hand down the quiet sidewalk, leaving the chaos of the ballroom behind like a scene we'd stepped out of, like actors who knew the show was over and had nothing left to prove. He squeezed my fingers gently. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice just yet. There were too many emotions swirling inside me. Relief, sadness, triumph, closure. It was hard to untangle them. We didn't go anywhere fancy afterward. No rooftop bar, no romantic fireworks. Just a small 24-hour diner on the edge of town, the kind with torn booths and laminated menus, the smell of fried food hanging in the air. We walked in, both of us absurdly overdressed for the setting. Eli looked like he'd stepped off a red carpet. My sleek black dress was still flawless, though it now carried the weight of everything that had happened tonight. And yet, I'd never felt more at ease. We slid into a booth near the back. The waitress gave us a once-over but didn't say a word. She just brought us water and took our order, fries and milkshakes, comfort food for a battle hard won. Eli slid a plate toward me. "Eat," he said with a smile. "You've had a long day." "That's one way to put it," I laughed. It came out more real than I expected. I hadn't laughed like that in a long time, the kind of laugh that didn't come with pain behind it. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the jukebox humming something vintage and gentle. It was simple, uncomplicated, the exact opposite of everything I'd just walked away from. I looked at him finally, setting my drink down. "So, how long were you planning that?" I asked, a teasing smile creeping across my face. "The proposal?" He smirked, wiping his hands with a napkin. He leaned back, looking both satisfied and maybe just a little nervous, the way you look after taking a leap without knowing how hard you'll land. "I've been wanting to ask you for months, Lena," he admitted, "but I knew you weren't ready. Not for marriage, not even for the idea of us. You needed time, and I was never going to push you." He looked at the ring still glinting on my finger, then back up at me. But when I saw that invitation, I knew I had to be there. Not just for you, but with you. I wasn't going to let her throw that man in your face and have you stand there alone. I smiled, remembering the way he had offered, no, insisted, on coming to the wedding. Not as a +1, but as a background presence, a safety net. "And the waiter thing?" I asked. "How'd you pull that off?" He laughed, leaned in. "Called in a favor. Apparently I look good holding a tray." "You looked perfect," I said, and I meant it. We were quiet for a moment again. Then he reached across the table, took my hand in his. His thumb traced slow, thoughtful circles over my knuckles. "Tonight wasn't about revenge," he said softly. "It was about closure. You let go. You stood up. You finally got to be seen." I nodded, the lump rising in my throat. Because he was right, I hadn't gone to the wedding just to humiliate Tessa. I had gone to reclaim something, not from her, but from me, my strength, my worth, my voice. And in doing so, I'd found something even better than justice. I'd found peace. "Thank you, Eli," I whispered, "for everything." He shook his head, eyes warm. "Thank you for saying yes." I smiled, not just because of the proposal, but because for the first time in what felt like forever, the path ahead didn't feel uncertain or painful. It felt open, and I wasn't walking it alone. What would you have done? If you liked this story, wait until you hear about what happened when Davina promised her sister $10,000 for her wedding, only for betrayal to cancel everything. But when the sister still demanded the money, oh, you better believe Davina had a plan.